right, what is going on, everybody? What's happening here? I apologize if anyone is catching up late or didn't make the original show. If you did make it now, I appreciate it. Had some technical difficulty in the background. So again, my apologies about that. So, welcome to a value conversation, Gen X spoken word. We've been in and out for the last couple of weeks or so because I've been overseas, but as I said, I'm back and I'm going to try ahead and get normal again, as normal as I can be, all right? So the topic for tonight, white supremacy's willful distortion of fact. So I've been watching this whole Charlie Kirk deal for the last 2 months now, and we know that this is what it is, which is white supremacy has come back. The Confederacy, so to speak. And we are looking at it on a day-to-day basis right now and watching rights be eroded. But we'll get into that, all right? Right now, let's go ahead and sit back here and get on this Nas tip we got going on right now. All right, fair use, fair use. All right, fair use, fair use. Let's go ahead and run it back. All right, again, welcome back, folks. All right, so I appreciate everyone who's able to tune in right now. Much thanks, much thanks. So again, welcome to a valued conversation, Gen X spoken word. So the topic, as I said before, is going to be white supremacy's willful distortion of facts. Now, this has been a continual thing that we've seen that's gone on for decades, dare even say for years, centuries, call it what you want. But over the last 2 months or so, with the unfortunate demise of Charlie Kirk, we've seen a renewed enthusiasm of white supremacy. Now, this is not me just making statements just because I feel like it. It's the fact that it is happening. But to question this means that people lose their jobs depending upon where you are. So let me go ahead and make this statement, and we'll stay with this theme right now. We're talking about Charlie Kirk. Again, it is unfortunate what happened to that man. No one can say that it's not. But what's more unfortunate is that we're seeing people willing to espouse the words that he spoke of, to put out the same level of hatred he did, and worse yet, to act as if there was no racism to go along with it. Now, that's the biggest concern that I saw here. Now, I'm not expecting to have a lot of people to join and stay here, but then again, I'm not expecting anyone to come back and look at the replay gang backup version here. But if you do, I appreciate it. Otherwise, if you're here, thanks for showing up. Again, if you don't show up right about now, we've got hours to do, so the replay game will catch everybody on the backside, all right? By all means, if you have any questions, comments, go ahead, drop them in here. Now, fair note, I'm going to let you know here, for any of the folks who are here as Charlie Kirk apologists, there's no love for you, all right? It's just not going to happen. I'm not going to bring you up so you can sit here and spout all the nonsense that he did and pretty much just come up and lie. Not happening. Now, you're welcome to go ahead and go off inside my chat. Feel free. Now, at this point in time, the show is still rather small, so I don't have anyone who's going to be down here mediating things. But from time to time, I've got some of the folks who show up on the show with me, and they either join the panel or they sit in the chat. So either or, understand if I drop the link later and I don't know you, you're not coming up. If you're spouting rhetoric, you're not coming up. If you want to cut a fool, you're still not coming up. But you're welcome to sit down in the chat. I got no problem with that. Knock yourselves out. All right, so let me go ahead and just start the lead in right about now. So what would I have to say about Charlie Kirk? Charlie Kirk was a racist, sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot. And I'll add to that a lying ass liar, which I'm going to show again, as I normally do when people ask questions of me. I bring my receipts. Charlie Kirk was someone who spread Southern strategy style hate speech that was dressed up as legitimate political discord, which was nothing more than conservative political theater and disingenuous debate. That's the best way that I can put this when we have this conversation about this man. There was always this thing of sidestepping the truth, providing a little bit of fact that had nothing to do with the conversation, but then swearing that he told the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And then people construed it as, oh, he's straightforward. Charlie Kirk is telling the truth. I don't understand. I don't see any racism in what he's saying. Can you give me some proof? The most annoying thing is knowing that there's going to be this disingenuous argument about Charlie Kirk not being a racist. Now, I can deal with that. I can recognize that people are going to have this bad faith conversation. And most of the time you hear this statement of, well, I didn't see any racism with what Charlie Kirk said. Show me something. Yes, Adrian Kamel. Nice to see you, but I have never seen you at this point in time. Matter of fact, if I have before, I apologize. So once I see that you're consistent in your comments, then we'll consider some things here. But until then, by all means, thank you for joining the show. Please ride through, all right? Enjoy yourself if you want to stay. Oh, lost my train of thought. But anyway, as I was saying here, the idea here is to, again, make sure that when someone tells me, I just don't see it, I already know where this is going to go. And the reason being that if you are not willing to call out Charlie Kirk's racism, that means that you just don't want your racism called out as well. Hello, Haven. Spider-Man, how you doing? Yeah, well, I'll put it this way. He was not a good person as far as if you want to talk about someone who has anything good to say about anybody else. For those of you who never knew of Charlie Kirk until he died, Charlie Kirk was a racist. But depending upon who you talk to, you'll get a different story. And this is going to be based on what I call the moral perspective. You can either be right or you can be correct. What's the difference? To be right is a moral perspective that's going to be based upon a set of values or something that's ingrained within you. So therefore, moral is always right or wrong. Now, to be correct means that you're speaking from fact, meaning that this is something empirical. It is proven. There's no if, ands, or buts. So therefore, if you look at it, right being a moral perspective, like religion as well, it's a thing of belief. Hey, welcome, Frank. What do I stand for? I stand for being correct. for the most part. Now, if you're here just to more or less go ahead and spout and ask for racial rhetoric, I'm not here to give that. I'm here to show that it did exist with Charlie Kirk's words. But by all means, please stick around. So again, you have to have a perspective of, do you want to be right or do you want to be correct? And being right is what you will normally see when it comes to racism, which is going to be ingrained based upon indoctrination, versus correct, which is being able to see that, yes, that is a racial statement that you've just made. You have just accused blacks of prowling around in groups and beating up white people for fun. That's a fact. But no, it was not a fact. It was a lie. But for people who are not familiar with Charlie Kirk and they see him speak in, we'll say, an authoritative tone, they believe it's true. But that's the whole basis of what I would like to do here tonight. And as I've done many other nights, I'm just going to go ahead and share with you what everybody else who believes in being correct and not right has seen. So let me start it off this way. I'm going to go ahead and kill the background for the moment. So what's my opinion on deportation? If it is proven that you are a criminal, then deportation is an option. However, the problem is that when you are not a criminal, but you use every resource that is available to you to portray someone as being criminal just to get them gone, that is wrong. But the issue I also have with deportation is that we've got a list of folks responsible for mass shootings going back a decade who are still here. But someone with a traffic violation is being put on an airplane and sent to Djibouti or something like that. So I would say that deportation exists for those who break the law and who are proven to have broken the law. But we've seen that deportation has now taken on a whole new different meaning than the intent before, which was people who had overstayed their visas. Now it's become some type of reckless tool that, well, you stepped on the crack at 5 o'clock on a Thursday. You got to get out of here. The rules have been changed, and that's the problem right now. The rules keep shifting for the benefit of or should I say, yeah, I'll go ahead and say this, for people who are non-white. And clearly we see this. What would you say to people who bring up statistics about black areas versus white areas? They love to use crime statistics to validate what he said. You're absolutely right. Funny enough, you should mention that. I've got a clip set aside for that also as well, because in the end, the statistics that Charlie came up with were made up for the most part, or he grabbed them from a year, brought them into a particular time frame, and made a statement such as, blacks were less murderous back in the 1940s. What happened? And it's a disingenuous statement. Now, I already know what happened. And myself and other folks who study history to a degree already know what happened. But for those of you who don't, it seems like it's new information. What we're talking about is, as I said before, pretty much a lie, a distortion of the truth. Is going to be one of those two or both. But here, let me do this. Let me put the banner up. All right, so that's the best way they're going to put it right now. It's either a flat out lie or a distortion of the truth. And that's normally what you would get if you were to listen to Charlie Kirk. Now, again, if you were indoctrinated and you grew up inside of this nonsense of what is that? Oh, heritage, not hate. You are accepting of what he says. although he comes from a hateful heritage. But as I said before, it's about being right versus being correct. If you grew up in a hateful heritage where they spout heritage, not hate, but yet you've got pictures of the Ku Klux Klan parading down the street with signs that say "Make America Great Again" or "America First," then we know that you're dealing with, as I'm saying, a flat out lie and a distortion of the truth. Do you know how many people live in the USA? So, because the numbers have changed, I have not checked as of late. But the bigger question is, are you looking to make an excuse for what certain people in the USA do to other people to prove your point? More so. So let's go ahead and get on with this, folks. I don't want to get too distracted, but I'll make sure that I stop from time to time and answer any questions that anyone may have. Bear with me, folks, so I'll go ahead and bring up this first example. Yeah, let's go with this one. All right, so as I said before, I've got examples of things that Charlie Kirk has said, but depending upon what circle you come from, you'll hear this and think, well, I don't hear any racism. But let's just give it a moment here, all right? Let's go ahead and let this play out. So let's go ahead and I'm going to share the whole screen. Now, if you can't hear it, by all means, let me know. Rob Platinum, what's going on? By the way, folks, just to let you know, this is Rob Platinum here. Rob and I had our disagreements in the beginning, but once we got to know each other and once he stood out here with the shows and understood the format, we actually had more in common than we admitted here. So take note here. Rob is going to be checking out what's going on here and also providing commentary here and there, as well as having conversations with some of you in the chat if I'm able to. As always, Rob, I appreciate you for stopping in, man. All right, so fair use, fair use. So this is what Charlie Kirk had to say about blacks. Oops, just a second. Let me turn the song back on.
Happening all the time in urban America. Prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact.
All right, that is a statement that Charlie Kirk made not just once, but on a few occasions. I'll go ahead and play it again.
Happening all the time in urban America. Prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact.
Let me say it again. Now, as Rob is saying, that's not even close to a fact because it's not a fact. It is not happening. Now, I will say that doesn't account for the random incident where you may have a couple of black folks get into it with white folks, or maybe a black guy will jump a white guy will jump a black guy, a whole bunch of white folks will jump a black guy. That does happen. But the consistent statement to make that blacks are always prowling about waiting to attack white people for fun never happened. But I've got a statement for you. I've got something for you for that one, folks. By the way, I think I missed something here. This is from Haven. How do you feel about racism influence towards kids? Many kids in middle school or younger are racist now. And even my little sister's friend got called something for being black. It's very crazy now. Yes, it is, because it's become fashionable being a racist for whatever reason. Now, the problem here is that if it's dismissed and pushed to the side, no one thinks about it. But the bigger issue that you see, and I'll put it this way. I've said this in a few of my earlier shows, and I'll say it again right now. There was a failing after the civil rights movement. And when I say a failing, it means that for all those folks who had fought for civil rights to finally have the opportunity to be able to vote, to own property, or to be able to walk out in public and not be afraid of having a rope thrown around your neck, they enjoyed the right that had just come into existence. But the problem was that enjoying that right to the extent that it was forgotten to instill it into the next generation. Now, Rob has been around for some shows that we had, and he'll tell you that we've talked about how everybody likes to use the word, and we don't do this here, but I'll say it right now, nigger, or nigga, as a version of it, as if it's cool or a term of endearment. That's what the problem was. People don't seem to think that John Lewis, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Huey Newton, think of anyone from the civil rights movement who stood out in the street, hit by water hoses, dogs were sicked on them, drug off to jail, just to have the right to sit here and do what I'm doing right now. But only 60 years later to hear kids say, oh, it's just a word, man. It's just a word. And just to be used effortlessly. Just effortlessly. Now think about this. And I mentioned this before. I can't think of any time where I've seen anyone of Jewish faith walk up and say to another one, what's going on, K-word? No, you don't see that. It will not happen, and it's not going to happen. But again, inside of our culture, we've made using the word nigger a term of endearment, to the point some people I've heard say, well, if we just use the word all the time, maybe it won't mean anything. No, it just means that the word gets used all the time and nobody else minds using it because we use it so freely. But anyway, let me go ahead and pull this off the screen. Let's get back into this. So you heard what Charlie Kirk had to say. Blacks all going around prowling, preying on white people for fun. That's a fact. Again, no, it's not a fact. I respect how you put yourself out to talk about problems in the community and for us colored people. Happy to tune in, but it's getting late, mate. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. All right. So you either must be in Australia or over in England, either or. And I say that because of the fact that you use colored people. And only because I grew up in England, I recognize that that's a term that's used not to be hateful, but that's just how it's still put for some folks. But thanks for stopping in, Haven. Hope I'll see you some other time. Is 60 times more likely to be stolen than the average vehicle. And isn't that a car culture icon? You know what? If it is, I'm not sure what it has to do with the conversation tonight. Also, the United States didn't properly resolve the race issue after the Civil War up until present. So, very true. Very true, Rob. As you and I have gone across here when we talked about Reconstruction period, the biggest problem is that at the end of the war, when the Democrats and Republicans both claimed around 1876 that they both won the presidency, the only way that the Democrats were able to get the Union troops to leave was to get them to agree to taking the presidency, to which they said, okay, you guys can have the presidency as long as you take your troops out of the South. And of course, by doing that, the 11 years of Reconstruction were almost as if it never existed. Exactly, Rob. And you hit right on the head like I'm talking about right now. There are way too many concessions that were given, but the biggest concession was moving the Union troops out of the South. Therefore, once you did that, there was no one there left to enforce any of the actions that came from the North winning the Civil War. I'm just going to go ahead and share the whole screen. since we're not doing too much audio here. Oh, hey, we're black here. Oh, Haven, thought you going to sleep, man. I'm half black and half Puerto Rican. I said mate because my dad said it a lot. And I said color because it's the way I say dark-skinned people without seeing racism to my community, you know? Yes. And as I was saying, depending upon where you're from, some people use that word because that's how it's used in the community. Whereas from the area I'm from, to use someone or to say colored, that's still taken as a racial epithet, offensive. But I get what you're saying. No one's looking at that, or should I say I'm not, because I get it. All right, so stepping on here. So again, remember the statement from Charlie Kirk. Blacks are prowling around hurting white people for fun. That's a fact. And it's already been stated. No, it is not. But here is a fact. White supremacists reportedly confessed on tape to killing black men. So I don't know how many of you remember here, but shortly after Donald Trump came into the White House, you had a spike in hate crimes through the roof. Hey, thanks again for stopping in, Haven. And I'll see you next time if you want to be consistent, all right? Take care. You know what? Let's put this out here just in case we have other folks come through. Cheers. So when Donald Trump got into the White House, hate crimes just shot through the roof. And I can remember a few of them that occurred. And I actually went back and I got a few just for tonight's show, because again, there's always this distortion of facts when you're listening to people who have Charlie Kirk's mentality. So again, a white supremacist accused of stabbing a black man to death on a New York City street told police he wanted to purge the earth of black people. According to his videotape confession, James Jackson told investigators after his arrest in March 20th, 2017, stabbing of Timothy Kaufman, that blacks were inferior and should be exterminated. The New York Post reported that Jackson's confession was played at a pretrial hearing in Manhattan on Tuesday. Now, keep in mind now, this article is about 7 years old. Authorities say the 30-year-old Jackson traveled from Baltimore to New York City to kill black men. The 66-year-old Kaufman was stooped over a pile of trash when he was attacked from behind with a sword. He staggered, bleeding into a police station where he died. After slaying, Jackson said he discarded the sword in a trash can, but walked around the city for hours with 2 knives concealed in his jacket, stalking as many as 15 people, but didn't commit more crimes. It was weird. I didn't feel great. I didn't feel horrible either. I thought it, being the murder, would send me into a blood-rage fury, Jackson said, reports the paper. So as you can see here, I can't really recall any time that groups of blacks were out prowling, waiting to attack white people. Just 10s, 15, 20 or more. I don't recall ever seeing that. But you know what I do recall? I recall in Brentwood, Tennessee around 2017, 2018. But I recall there was a Unite the Right get together in Tennessee. I think it may have been in Shelby County. And after that particular rally was over, about 30 white supremacists went to a restaurant. They saw an interracial couple there. They went into the restaurant and began harassing who? They began harassing the Muslim guy over in the corner. No, I'm kidding. There was no Muslim guy there, but rest assured, if he was there, he would have been assaulted also. 30 of these guys went over by the interracial couple specifically just to start a fight. So here we go. Hours after a White Lives Matter rally unfolded Saturday in Shelbyville, Tennessee, resulting in lots of counter protesters, but no violence. A fight broke out between a smaller group of white supremacists and an interracial couple at a restaurant in Brentwood, about 50 miles to the north. The couple, a 30-year-old white woman and a 37-year-old black man, were dining inside the corner pub when a group of about 20 to 30 white men and women came in and sat at a table behind them, according to the statement by the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department. The 30-year-old woman later told police that one of the group members asked her to guess, and that she responded, "White Lives Matter." Another said, "That's right," and told her to join their table and leave her boyfriend, police said in a statement. The argument inside apparently escalated even after the female victim had gone outside to de-escalate the situation. Police said another woman from the self-identified White Lives Matter group, began to argue with the 30-year-old woman, who was then reportedly punched in the face by a man, causing a cut above her eye. She did not seek medical treatment, police said. So the video was captured by Annalise Verm, a Tennessee resident who says she had driven to Brentwood to escape the rally chaos farther south. While at the corner pub, Wormer said she recognized a group of white supremacists walking to the restaurant. These guys, maybe about 20 of them, dressed in all black, paraded through to an adjoining room and immediately started harassing a biracial couple there, Worm wrote in Facebook post that has since been widely shared. It broke out into a huge fight with them busting open the face of the white girl, who was furious with them for harassing them. I honestly can't believe this is happening. My heart hurts. I'm sure her heart hurts, but think about old girl got hit in the face, right? But nonetheless, again, here we have a group of white folks prowling around looking to hurt black people or anyone who's with them. That is the truth, or dare I say, that is correct. It is a fact and reported. But you know what? There's still more here. White man who stabbed black college student to death in Maryland, sentenced to life in prison. So I want to say this was around 2018, 2019. But again, these stories I'm going back and bringing up here, which make the point that we're having a discussion today about the facts when we hear that blacks are always out roaming around looking for trouble, attacking people. Not the case here if you're paying attention. A white man was sentenced to life in prison Thursday for fatally stabbing a black college student in what prosecutors described as a racially motivated hate crime on the University of Maryland's main campus in 2017. And again, this story was published back in January of 2021, January 15th, shortly after the insurrection. A jury convicted Sean Urbanski, 25, of first-degree murder for the death of Richard Collins III, a newly commissioned Army lieutenant, in December 2019. On the night of his murder, Collins was days away from graduating from Bowie State University, a historically black college, and was celebrating with a friend at bars. His mother, Dawn Collins, said he was on a pinnacle of doing great things at a press conference. He had inspired to be the next General Colin Powell, Collins said, and there was nothing that was going to stop him. Urbanski, who was enrolled at the University of Maryland's College Park campus, was also drinking with friends at bars the night. Early in the morning on May 20th, 2017, Urbanski approached Collins at a bus stop where he was waiting with two people, a white man and an Asian woman. Urbanski brandished a knife. Step left if you know what's best for you, Urbanski told them, according to police. Collins said no, and Urbanski stabbed him once in his chest. He then sat down on a bench until police arrived and arrested him. Now, take a look at this guy's face. Now, there was another video, but I want to save that here because that should address another segment of conversation that I want to have with you guys. But take a look at his face. Now, doesn't that seem murderous to you? I mean, it seems this empty, sociopathic, and the look of murder is all over his face. And if he were to commit murder, he wouldn't care because it was a black person. Why does it matter to me? That is the look that I see here. Now, if I were Charlie Kirk, I would say, wow, just look at that murderous expression on his face. I don't know where this murder comes from, but I'm sure it's something that's just ingrained in his race. Yeah. That is something that you would hear from Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk would not look at the individual. He would criticize the entire race and say, this is who they are, like a monolith. So if I follow, there's enough instances of the opposite of what Charlie said happening to show that he was selecting real things, but only on one side to promote a one-sided view. Yes, I Nader. And I'm going to show you that tonight, or a few instances of this. If you want to see more, all you need to do is to go to my page because I always bring receipts. All right, Robert Platinum will tell you that. Agent Smith, who's not here tonight, will tell you that. But still, just ride along, take a look, and just tell me what you pull from this. But what you said is exactly what I'm saying right now. Charlie Kirk knew how to take just enough information, a little bit of a lie, a little bit of a truth, allow you to use your own inference if you weren't knowledgeable of the situation, and then fully distort the conversation at the end. So therefore, when he spoke in an authoritative tone, that's a fact. You would believe him. Keep watching. So moving along with that. Now, prosecutors said alcohol and racist propaganda emboldened Urbanski to act on his hatred of black people. Urbanski was part of several alt-right Facebook groups that shared racist images, according to Prince George's County State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy. At a press conference after the sentencing, Braveboy said the hate that drove Urbanski to murder was the same hate that fueled the riot at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. It cannot and will not be tolerated, she said. Hate kills, and it killed this young man. Yes, it did. But stand by for a moment, folks. I believe I've got another example here to share with everyone. It was, if I get them out of order, I get them out of order, all right? So bear with me. So I needed to go back to the question that you had just asked about Charlie Kirk taking half the information, then putting out one side of it. Let me give you an example. Wait. Share screen. And we'll do the entirety again. So make sure if you don't hear this, let me know. All right, fair use, fair use. I don't believe that there were any arrests or convictions resulting from the assault in Brentwood, Tennessee. I don't either, Rob, and I'm from Tennessee. So I think what ended up happening is that there may have been some complaints filed, no one pushed anything, and it all just evaporated into the ground. Now, that's what I recall from that because I didn't see anything else. But as always, we can check into that and maybe present that at a later date. All right, so again, fair use, fair use. Let me know if you can't hear this, folks.
Be delivered. When blacks in America did not have the same rights they had today, They were less murderous. There was less break-ins. Why is that?
So I'm sorry, are you trying to say that blacks thrive under subjugation?
No, I'm saying I'm asking you the question. The data shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad. It was evil. But what happened? Something changed.
Oh, AI native, pay close attention. This is exactly what you just asked. This is what Charlie Kirk did. Charlie Kirk, as I said before, and if you missed it in the beginning, I'll go ahead and run it back for folks. Charlie Kirk used a Southern strategy styled hate speech approach that was dressed up as legitimate political discord that was nothing more than conservative political theater and disingenuous debate. And that's what we're looking at right now. Disingenuous debate. Let me play this for you one more time.
Be delivered. When blacks in America did not have the same rights they had today, they were less murderous. There was less break-ins. Why is that?
So I'm sorry, are you trying to say that blacks thrive under subjugation?
No, I'm saying I'm asking you the question. The data shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad. It was evil. But what happened? Something changed.
It was evil. It was bad. Something changed. They were less murderous. Now, notice, as I said before, murderous. Why did he have to use the word murderous? Why did he have to use murder? Matter of fact, why did he even have to try and present it in such a fashion? But this is one of two examples that I'm going to give of how Charlie Kirk did this. So again, let's go ahead and just look at it right now. Forgive my language. Let's not even fuck around with this. So Charlie Kirk said that blacks were less murderous in the 40s. So why is that? So getting past his disingenuous statement, the reason why you didn't see a lot of activity from blacks as far as murder, because of the fact that blacks were murdered more often than not just because of someone's statement. Oh, he looked at that white woman. Oh, he whistled at that white woman. He talked back to me. It could be anything. All you needed was someone to make the statement that so-and-so did this. Who? That ninja over there. And the next thing you know, you've got 15 to 20 white folks with shotguns out in your yard wearing sheets, or maybe some of them who were bold enough didn't wear sheets, burning a cross in your yard, shooting into your house, or shooting into your house, kicking the door down, walking in, dragging a family member out of the said house, setting the house on fire, shooting the male of the house, and if there are women in the house, having their way sexually with the women, shooting them maybe, and then going down to the creek with the person that they pulled out of the house, shoot them, beat them, hang them, set them on fire. But still, blacks were less murderous. The reason why you didn't have a lot of black crime back then, because crime was something that didn't exist truly amongst blacks per se, because there was the fear of just living on a day-to-day basis. I'm not saying that there wasn't criminality, but to the degree to where blacks were less murderous, no, it wasn't about being less murderous. It was the fact that you could die anytime during the day back then. Therefore, black families were closer knit because of the threat of death on a day-to-day basis. So this was a disingenuous statement that Charlie Kirk was making. But still, let me go further into this. Actually, so to get back on what we were talking about here with Charlie Kirk, the other thing that people don't seem to realize during that time period, when he was trying to say that blacks were less murderous, it's also because Jim Crow was still in effect. But let's think about this. In 1964, you had the Civil Rights Act. In 1965, you had the Voting Rights Act. What essentially happened in 1965? Jim Crow was abolished. So the other thing here in the 1940s, 30s, 20s, or should I say from the time of Reconstruction up until 1965, Jim Crow was used as a method of intimidation to keep blacks supposedly in their place. If blacks were to attempt to vote, then you would have a group of whites who would show up and intimidate them out of voting, or before voting took place, go to their houses if they knew who was responsible for organizing them to vote and intimidate them there. Hanging, shooting, it was death mainly, or at least enough of a level of harassment and physical abuse to make them not vote or to even leave town. But the biggest thing that people seem to not know when Charlie Kirk made that disingenuous statement is that the reason that you saw more statistics of blacks being portrayed as criminals after 1965 is because criminality or anything to do with crime was linked directly to the civil rights movement. Even though the civil rights movement was not massive crime, but in order to keep blacks in a subjugated position and to make it look like blacks were criminals, you had to have some way to do that, since Jim Crow was no longer there to keep the niggers in their place. Have a look. And as I said here, I put this directly into Google, and this is what I got back. Criminality was linked to the civil rights movement. And I state again, the civil rights movement was linked to criminality through its opposition, which falsely associated civil disobedience with rising crime rates, leading to the use of the criminal justice system against protesters and the later push for tough on crime policies that disproportionately impacted minority communities. So let me stop right there just for a second. So again, if you recall Charlie Kirk's statement, blacks were less murderous when they had less rights. So I'm just asking you, what happened? What changed? What changed, as I said here, is that after Jim Crow was abolished and there was no way to keep blacks down and in their place, so to speak, to keep them from wanting the same rights and having equality, the civil rights movement was then associated with criminality. And in doing so, that gave them the instance or the ability to say that blacks are criminals. And of course, you have all the excessive time, all the excessive charges that came with that. That's how it was done to make blacks look like they were criminals, or to support the disingenuous statement that Charlie Kirk was making. So what was Jim Crow? So Jim Crow was a period that came up directly after the Civil War. We'll say during the start of the Reconstruction period. Now, the Reconstruction period, just to take it back for a moment, Reconstruction was that point in time where you had all the formerly enslaved folks who were, we'll just say, who were integrated in society, meaning white Southern society. So for all the folks who were slaves on a Friday, let's say after the Civil War, when Monday came around, they were free people and they had the same rights and privileges, or were intended to have the same rights and privileges as the white people who had just owned them the previous week before. So you had the, I got to dust this off now because it's been a while. So you had the Reconstruction Amendments. You had the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. You had the 14th Amendment, which gave blacks the right to own property. There's something else to that I know I'm missing, but they were given the rights to own land, property. And then you had the 15th Amendment, which allowed blacks the right to vote. Oh, I think the 14th Amendment also guaranteed the right for protection, or to be protected, or be protected as a citizen. I'm foggy on that one. It's been a minute, but nonetheless, those were the Reconstruction Amendments that were passed to ensure that blacks were given every opportunity to be seen as equals inside of society at that point. Now, during that 11-year stretch from 1866 to 1877, you had blacks who became doctors, who became statesmen, who became engineers, who became educators. teachers, you name it. In just 11 years, you had that type of progress that was made, but all that went out the window in 1877, as I mentioned before, when you had the Republicans and also the Democrats claiming victory. Now, here's something that if Rob is still here, he'll tell them. Oh, Jesse Jackson, the BBB has killed a lot more African Americans than the KKK, the Bad Black Brothers. Yeah, so that is not true, but we'll address that. Don't forget about the exception clause of the 13th Amendment, which was a concession to the southern states. Yes, primarily that concession that Rob is speaking of is more or less what enabled the Democrats at the time, who were back then, yes, the Democrats were the bad guys up until 1963, or we'll say 1965. But then we're talking about the ideology switch that, yes, it actually happened. But that's a different topic altogether. But be that as it may, the Republicans used to be the good guys based on the ideology that was held. So the Republicans, hey, they fell for it. They fell for the banana in the tailpipe, and they removed the troops from the South. And as soon as they did that, everything reverted as if the Civil War had not been fought. And so there were other instances that you saw where you had mobs of white folks prowling around, attacking black folks for almost 130 years, pulling them out of their homes, attacking them on the roads, just for fun. One would even say they were called the Ku Klux Klan. And for over 120 years, these white folks prowled around attacking black folks for fun, because they felt they had an entitlement to do so, because these folks were supposedly inferior. So to Charlie Kirk's first lie that we looked at, blacks prowling around, hurting white people for fun, that's a fact. No, it was not a fact. What was a fact was 100 plus years of the Ku Klux Klan torturing, murdering, maiming, stalking black folks, hanging them, shooting them, killing them, raping them. Yeah. That is a fact. That is a fact. So as I said here, what they did when Jim Crow went away is that now they figure we've got nothing to use here. So we'll use civil rights as the crutch. All right, we're going to say that they are criminals. We're going to link any crime that we can think of to civil rights, and that will be our new Jim Crow suppression method. Conversely, the movement itself also involved the use of criminal laws to prosecute perpetrators of violence, such as hate crimes, and expose systemic injustices within the criminal justice system itself. So that eventually had to work itself out. But ideally, first and foremost, the idea here was that the folks who were pro-civil rights were going to be cast as criminals. Why? Because the Department of Justice had the ability to do so, because hey, we can. Oops. And on top of that, they flooded a lot of those former black towns and villages. Oh, you know what, Rob? You're absolutely right. I think I was supposed to get a show together to talk about the black towns underwater. So anyone in the replay gang, if you're still here or you're still watching, that show is still yet to come. For anybody who's here for the first time, by all means, please keep checking this out. Now, if I happen to slip off their stone someplace and fall into the water, as you can see here, Rob Platinum is going to keep me honest. Shout out, Rob. Appreciate it. So going back to this, criminality as a backlash against the movement. False association with crime. Opponents of the civil rights movement strategically linked civil disobedience to rising crime, creating the narrative that the movement was a source of lawlessness. So again, AI Nader, you asked that question, or let's go back here, because AI Nader asked a perfect question regarding the malice that Charlie Kirk normally sprayed out. I'm talking full-on malevolence from him. So just to go back a little bit, this is the question, or I think it was a question that A Nader asked. And excuse me if I'm butchering your name, man. So if I follow, there's enough instances of the opposite of what Charlie said happening to show that he was selecting real things, but only on one side to promote a one-sided view. So everybody who's here right now, put a 1 in the chat if you're picking up what I'm putting down, which is Charlie Kirk was disingenuous. Charlie Kirk was a racist, sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot, to include a lying ass liar. All right, so I know you're going to put a 1 in, Rob. That goes without saying, because again, you and I have been here from the very beginning for almost a year now doing this. Anyone who is not, feel free to go back and look at the catalog. You see plenty of instances of myself, Rob Platinum, Agent Smith, and a few other folks who come through who will validate everything that I'm saying right now. Oh, 1, I think it's just me. No, it's not. If you have a look, Ionator, Rob Platinum said the exact same thing. Now, if you're unfamiliar with me, and again, if this is your first time, I'm not going to get up here and have a conversation and not be able to justify what I'm saying. I only bring receipts with me. So are you getting it now, Ionator? Are you seeing what I'm saying? Or basically, are you picking up what's getting put down? Charlie Kirk's whole thing was, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? But the thing here is that he would get you to believe that your eyes were being dishonest to you. There was a line in the movie Swordfish where John Travolta said something about the ears will follow what the eyes see. But basically, he talks about just being led by creating an illusion and to get you to focus on the illusion while he's got his thumb up your ass or something like that for the most part. Look at it this way, like a puppet for your whole hand, just got you played. But that's what Charlie Kirk would normally do. So do you get it now? But we're not done there. We're not done yet. Okay, you understand it. And as I said before, I don't come up here and tell lies to people. Anything anybody wants to know, they can go back and validate that. I even leave the information for you. So feel free to check. So moving on here, we'll get off of this in just a second. What else do we have? Criminalizing protesters. Activists faced arrest, incarceration, and police brutality for engaging in civil disobedience, effectively using the criminal justice system against them. Now, again, when you talk civil disobedience, you're talking about sit-ins. You're talking about marches. You're talking about being drug off of buses by not sitting in the back of the bus. That's what civil disobedience was. That is what's considered to be legitimate political discord. Legitimate political discord is not rushing into a building, beating up police officers, using their own weapons against them to beat them with it, to beat them with poles, running through the building, shitting on the establishment, breaking into the offices of elected officials, threatening to kill elected officials. So also to let folks know, there's a show coming up that's going to deal with, I think we called it 30 years of Christian extremism. Exactly. They violated their First Amendment rights as U.S. citizens. Everything that you saw of January 6th was a full-on insurrection. It was not a tourist day. Now, forgive me here. I'm going to break stride just for a second. So Rob and I have a habit of doing this because when we start talking and people come up and we start sharing information, information that's sitting in the back happens to come forward. There have been 3 instances of insurrection in the United States. The first instance was the Civil War. Now, believe it or not, if you go back and Google that and look at it, the Civil War was considered to be an insurrection. When you look at those 11 original states that seceded from the Union, the main reason they stated in writing was because of the fact that slavery was being attacked, and that was the way of life of them. That was their income, so to speak, slavery. Now you hear this lie of, oh, states' rights. No, it was not states' rights. If you look at the Declaration of succession that was signed by the states that succeeded from the Union, it says right in print that slavery was the main reason why they were out of there. But you'll have Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, any of these other Civil War, or should I say Confederate apologists, who make the same statement. Oh, well, it was about Southern pride. It was about states' rights. No, it was never about that. But you will not know that unless you either look for yourself or have someone who will look for you and tell you the truth and tell you where to find it. I can only point you in the direction. It's going to be up to you to go ahead and find that information once I show you where to go, because facts do not choose sides. People do. Law and order agenda, getting back to it. Or actually, before I do that, I'm sorry, I said there were three, didn't I? The first one was the Civil War. That's the first insurrection. The second one was in 1898 in a town called Wilmington, North Carolina. You had an integrated society of white and black who ran that local government, who voted, and people who won were elected. It didn't matter if you were white or black. All people have to do is read the Confederate leaders' own written statement. Yep. And the Confederate leaders will tell you right there, black men, the black race was inferior, and it was God's will or something to ensure that white supremacy reigned throughout and made sure that blacks stayed in their positions, or something along the lines. I'm paraphrasing, but I want to say that was, Rob, help me out. Was it Thaddeus Stevens? The president of the Confederacy? I can't recall. His last name was Stevens. But nonetheless, you would hear it openly from the Confederate leaders saying that, yes, slavery is our way of life, and by gum, we're going to protect it. So again, in Wilmington, North Carolina, 1898. Matter of fact, it is, I don't know if you can see this, but I've got a shirt here that says Black Massacres. So you've had a plethora, a cornucopia of massacres of black towns that have not even been discussed. I just did one last week on Slocum, Texas, 1910. And in Slocum, Texas, you had the murder of over 200 plus black people. The entire town wiped out by a mob of 300 or 400 white folks. Completely wiped out. People who were running were shot in their back. Anyone who was trying to flee ran into nearby swamps, into woods, and they were chased and shot in their backs as they were running away. Now, even though Slocum, Texas Slocum was, I want to say, a county or two over from where you had a large majority of whites, Slocum was an all-black town for the most part. So they had telephones. They had pretty much the same modern conveniences. Now, get this. The phone lines were cut to ensure that the black folks of the town would not be able to warn others before you had 200 some odd white folks who walked into town with guns and started shooting and killing any black person. But if you want to see that, you need to go ahead and go to my channel, youtube.com/@1970 John Henry, capital J, capital H. And you'll be able to see everything that I'm speaking of right now, to include a little bit extra. Look under videos, look under shorts, look under the live tabs. There's about a year's worth of information that I've provided that come with receipts. So as I was saying, you had a group of white folks who said, or I'm not going to just call them white folks, they were white supremacists. Again, after 1877, Jim Crow was in effect. If you wanted to intimidate black folks, you could do that. One white man was normally enough, but you get 8 to 10 or more, someone ends up at the end of a rope. And that generally was the case. So when this group of white supremacists marched into town, they told them, you better get out of town. If you don't, you die. Those who stood the fight died or lived long enough to get away before they ended up dying. But the fact of the matter here is that the white supremacists, again, this was an insurrection, ran everyone out of town, shot them, killed them, drugged them, you name it. And once they were gone, they took over the town. To this moment in time right now, the government in place in Wilmington, North Carolina, is the government that came to be after the white supremacists overthrew the duly elected government back in 1898. Okay, I did have it right. Thaddeus Stevens. Appreciate it, Rob. Sometimes my gray matter slips, but I'm 55, so you have to excuse me. I'm old and I forget shit sometimes. Good looking out, Rob. And of course, we know the third insurrection, the most recent one, was January 6th, when Donald Trump tried to stay in power. So you hear the lies, oh, well, the FBI had agents. They were out there provoking everyone. No, they did not. I think I may have to go ahead and do another show just specifically about insurrection. So I'll put that on the docket. Yeah, we'll look at doing that, all right? For anyone who wants to see that. We'll do a show here and look at the insurrections that have occurred in America. But bringing all that back. So as we were saying here, just to reestablish ourselves, because we jumped around a lot, Charlie Kirk made the statement that blacks were less murderous. Okay, again, this is a lie. Blacks were not murderers at all because they were the ones being murdered. But through his disingenuous take, he tried to say that blacks were less murderous when in fact, blacks were not doing any murdering because it was too easy for them to be killed. When in fact, as I said before, you had groups of white folks, about 50 to 100, maybe 200 or more, who were killing black folks indiscriminately. That is a fact. But nonetheless, after the 64 Civil Rights Bill was passed and the 65 Voting Rights Act was passed, Jim Crow was abolished, the only way to continue to make blacks look as if they were criminal or to still put fear in them to prevent them from actively taking place in voting, in being able to buy homes, and able to go to school. Because remember, 1954, Brown versus the Board of Education, that's when segregation was overturned. Matter of fact, I still owe people a show about that as well. Now, if you cannot see this, the name of the book is called Overturning Brown, the Segregationist Legacy of the Modern School Choice Movement. So when you hear school choice, you got to understand that was a segregationist hustle. So much to be said here, all right? What you got, Rob? All must admit that slavery is the cause of it, being the Civil War. Without slavery, we should this day be a united and happy people. So, excuse me, Thaddeus Stevens was anti-slavery. Excuse me, let me make that correction. Not pro, but anti-slavery. All must admit that slavery is the cause of it, being the war. Without slavery, we should this day be a united and happy people. Thaddeus Stevens. I don't know where this name Stevens came from. I'm thinking, well, I'm not thinking. I've got all my names mixed up. But nonetheless, again, slavery was the main reason why the Civil War started and why the 11 Confederate states, you know what, screw it, I'm going to say it. The 11 states pulled out of the Union. I'm too old for this shit. That should not be funny. So getting back to it, criminality as a weapon used against the movement. Violence and terror, racially motivated violence and terror, including bombings, beatings, and murders of activists, were used to suppress the movement. Systemic injustice. The criminal justice system was used to turn a blind eye to these acts of terror, often refusing to protect activists or prosecute perpetrators. Federal enforcement. Federal laws were used to prosecute hate crimes, and the Department of Justice formed task forces to investigate crimes like the burning of Black churches. The movement's impact on the justice system. Exposure of bias. The movement exposed the racial bias and injustice embedded in the American legal system. Push for reform. It drove a push for reforms aimed at creating a fairer and more equitable approach to justice. But you still had, as it says, your continued disparities. Despite victories, the legacy of inequality persists, and issues of race and class continue to fuel mass incarceration. But nothing fuels mass incarceration or even the belief of criminality more than people like Charlie Kirk, who would lie about statistics and present it in such a way, as you saw, that would leave half the truth out, but fully distort the facts they were given. So to get back on track here, let's go ahead and proceed to our next topic here, or should I say our next tab? So, Black West Point cadet brutally beaten by white students days before graduation. All right, on this day, April 5th, 1880. Now, if you can see this, basically what you had here was a cadet, Whitaker. He was one of the few blacks who had made it into West Point. I think there was a total of 12 folks who may have made it into West Point, but only 3 graduated. Why do you think that was? It was because of racial harassment. Here, in the early hours of the morning on April 5th, 1880, Cadet Johnson Whitaker, one of the first black students in the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, was brutally beaten by white cadets while sleeping in his barracks. Again, black folks supposedly going around in groups, prowling around, hurting white folks for fun. Here's the reality. It's the opposite here. White folks in bunches, as minimal as 3 or 5 or whatever, strolling around looking for black people to hang or to assault. 3 white cadets ambushed Cadet Whitaker, slashed his head and ears, burned his Bible, threatened his life, and then left him in his underwear, tied to the bed and bleeding profusely. Let me do something, folks. Let me get this comments out of the way. There's no one else here except us. Born enslaved in South Carolina in 1858, Cadet Whitaker received a congressional appointment to the U.S. Military Academy in 1876. For most of his time at West Point, Cadet Whitaker was the only black cadet at the institution. He endured social exclusion and racial terrorism perpetrated at the hands of white cadets and faculty alike. 23 black cadets attended West Point between 1870 and 1890, but due to the violent discrimination that they faced, only 3 graduated. So excuse me when I said 12. I must be thinking, well, obviously I'm thinking of another story. So scratch what I said. It wasn't 12. It was 23, which is even worse because out of those 23 total, only they're saying here that 3 graduated. Yeah, a blanket party. Damn. Cadet Whitaker would later testify that he had read and heard about the treatment that black cadets received there and expected to be ostracized. After Cadet Whitaker reported to West Point administrators that he had been attacked, the institution opened an investigation into him. Are you serious? He was the victim, but he got investigated. So long story short here, folks, you want to go ahead and continue reading the article because we're pressed for time here. But in the end, Whitaker was the one who got kicked out of school. Even when he was kicked out, someone stood up for him and they had a conviction or him being thrown out, overthrown when he tried to go back to school. And this was, I want to say it was President Garfield who stood up here and wrote a letter on his behalf. But nonetheless, when he tried to go back to school, they said that he had failed an exam. So he wasn't going to get back in. That's just how it came down to it. He was not going to get back in. He was pushed out. Oh, at the depot? You know what, Rob, whenever you get a chance, man, hit me up on the back screen. If you want to chit chat about it, we can have that conversation. So let me know, man. You've got my email address. If not, or if anyone has any questions, let me do this. 1970. Ooh. Not as severe as this man, though. But still, man, the fact that you were assaulted like that, yeah. People don't think that this stuff happens. What was that movie with Tom Cruise? Did you order the code red? A Few Good Men. That was the first time that I'd ever heard of anything called a blanket party, was watching A Few Good Men. But again, for the public service announcement here, just so folks know, if you do not know, my background is psychology. Bachelor's, master's, currently working on my doctorates. So I've got some time, about maybe 15 some odd years in the study or the field, so to speak. So just to let people know, I'm not one of these YouTube, social media psychologists with no degree or anything like that. Now, I'm not a psychologist just yet, but we'll say that I'm 75% down the road, and in 3 years, I'll be able to call myself doctor officially. But right now, I'm just a doctoral candidate. But be that as it may, I actually do know some things about what we're talking about if we look at it from the psychology perspective or the human psyche. Originally, that's why I came on YouTube to have the conversation with folks in the Gen X crowd about relationships, or more or less an honest, or I have a dishonest approach, but an exact approach from someone who is still single out here after the age of 50. And what's different? And what do you know that happened during the time frame that I launched my channel? Donald Trump got back into the White House, and that changed my entire perspective. So from time to time, I still do take the time to do shows like that, which I probably need to, because it has been a long time since I've actually got up here and we had a discussion about emotions, or at least how the scene of relationships is for the folks past the age of 50. But again, we'll get back to that. But nonetheless, I'm looking at opening things up and starting to do any sessions with folks who want to have a conversation with me and either discuss my content, or if you want to discuss what's going on with you, I can do that. So give it some thought. There's my email address down there. Public service announcement done. Hey, no problem, Rob. So getting back to the story here, the moral is that Private Whitaker was stalked and beaten by a group of white folks who wanted to hurt him. And as Rob said, he got blanket party. He didn't go out looking for trouble. Trouble came to him. But that generally is the case, more so back then, before there were rules and laws put in place to protect formerly enslaved persons. Hey, like I said, Rob, I'm not a therapist yet, but if you just need someone to have a conversation with, I'll do what I can, man. So getting back to this, what else did Charlie Kirk say that I'm not sure A Nader is still with us, but what else did he say that was sideways out of his mouth? Dare I even say duplicitous? Saying one thing, doing something else. Well, let me reach into my bag of receipts. Ah, yes. How about, we want to do the great replacement? Ah, no, we don't want to do the great replacement one just yet. I've got one. Let's talk about, let's talk about immigration. Or better yet, let Charlie talk about immigration. I want you to see how he presents this. And best believe it's going to be a disingenuous approach. Stream tire. There we go. So in this particular instance, Charlie Kirk is yet again going to show us why I call him a lying ass liar. Now, again, as I Nader has stated, Charlie Kirk had a habit, or should I say a modus operandi, of taking a portion of the information, sharing a little bit of it that may have been fact, but then distorting it with his perspective and then completely shading out any context. Now, I know people love to say, oh, well, you're just listening to Charlie Kirk and you're just taking it out of context. You're only listening to a snippet. But what he says in those snippets, he says at great length every place else. And of course, when he speaks, he likes to be succinct and concise. There is nothing to be taken out of context with what Charlie Kirk said, unless you're going to pretend that, well, I have looked hard and I swear I don't see any racism. It's because of the fact that you aren't willing to admit your racism as well. If you see racism in Charlie Kirk, you are admitting your own racism. All right, fair use, fair use.
America was at its peak when we halted immigration for 40 years and we dropped our foreign-born percentage to its lowest level ever. America was at its peak when we halted immigration for 40 years and we dropped our foreign-born percentage to its lowest level ever.
It's like, oh, this fucking guy. So you heard that, right? You heard that mess. Woo! Give it up, bro. That woke shit dead. People want to hear the truth, not this fantasy world stuff you woke liberals are talking about. Hey, Rob, looks like we've got our first one. Yeah, no, actually, it's not done. Only to folks who actually live in the fantasy, who actually discard what's being said here. This is not fantasy. This is not a lie. This is Charlie Kirk's words, but feel free to hang out, Dolly. I don't mind you sitting here and substantiating the statement and what I'm pretty much presenting to everyone right now. I don't have to say anything. You're going to do my work for me. All right, so if you look behind here, folks, now keep in mind, I typed this in. When was immigration in America stopped for 40 years? Of course, I know that it wasn't, but still, I wanted to go ahead and put it in here and see what I got back. And this is what came back. Immigration in the United States was not stopped for 40 years, but it was severely restricted for a significant period from the 1920s to the 1960s due to restrictive laws like the Immigration Act of 1924. Now, what people fail to realize, I said individuals like Dolly Desi here, what these unlearned folks don't seem to understand here is that the only reason that immigration existed is because of the fact more nationalities than whites were coming into America in the late 19th century. Matter of fact, when the Chinese started coming in, that's when immigration popped into the board. Matter of fact, one of the first immigration laws out of bigotry that was passed was the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act. And that act was put in place to limit the amount of Chinese who were coming into the United States because they were doing the jobs that Western settlers said, well, I'm not going to do this. But because the Chinese needed the money and they were looking to have their stake in America like everyone else, they said, sure, we'll do it. And they did it for lesser money. So if you did not know that, look it up. 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act. That is the first, or if it's not the first, one of the first biased and prejudiced bills that were passed to prevent folks from different countries, i.e. different nationalities that were non-white, from coming into America. Amazing that what he called a fantasy was written and became a part of the historical record centuries and decades before he was born. Funny that, yeah, that's the type of idiocy that Rob and I generally deal with here. Folks who come in with ad hominem attacks with zero common sense, zero knowledge about what's being discussed, and make a complete asshat out of themselves. By his own words, history must be woke. I tell you all the time, folks, when our knowledge expands, influence soon follows. Idiots. But anyway, going back to what I was saying here. These laws, particularly the national origins formula, created quotas that heavily favored immigrants from Northwestern Europe and severely limited entry for others, especially from Asia. Notice I just mentioned the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act. And Eastern Europe. While not a complete halt, the period saw a sharp reduction in overall immigration. So this lie that Charlie Kirk was saying, or should I say this distortion of the truth, is that immigration was halted, but it did not stop. It was slowed down because of the fact that non-white nationalities were not allowed into the States. I think it had to do with Irish. There was also Hispanics, as you saw, and a few other European nationalities as well. But based upon that statement that Charlie Kirk made, you can see that he told another goddamn lie, and even went as far as distorting it as well. So let's look at this. The 1924 Immigration Act. This act established a quota system that drastically cut immigration and ensured that a disproportionate number of immigrants came from Northern and Western Europe, not Eastern. Economic and political factors. The global depression and World War II further reduced immigration during this time. So again, Charlie Kirk was being, as I called him before, a lying Azz Liar. Abolition of quotas. The restrictive quota system was finally abolished by the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, which shifted the preference system to focus on family reunification and employment skills instead of national origin. Oh, shit. And there's the other member of my squad. Smith, what's going on, man? Calling things you don't agree with woke is just ignorant. Yeah. And that's generally the case, folks. What you end up saying here is that anything that does not agree with this white supremacist extremist logic is considered leftist propaganda. But what do you do when this leftist propaganda is the truth and it can be verified? You call it more leftist propaganda and you keep doing it until people accept it as being leftist propaganda, when in fact, it's not me trying to be right. It's me being correct. And if you remember, as I stated before, there's a difference between being right versus being correct. Being right is a moral perspective based on values and belief, whereas being correct comes down to fact. And that's all I've got here, folks. I've got nothing but the facts for you. You may not like it, but understand. And Rob and Agent Smith will tell you, I'm not going to lie to you. You may not like it, but I am not going to lie to you. Facts do not choose sides because people do. And by all means, folks, I reserve the right to be wrong. But if I'm wrong, give me something that is verified that I can go back and correct myself with. Otherwise, I know that I'm dealing with someone who's being dishonest and providing me a bad faith argument. So in short here again, we saw one more time here that Charlie Kirk was lying. Clearly telling lies when he talked about the fact that, oh, immigration was down for 40 years and the country was great. No, immigration was not halted or stopped for 40 years. It was slowed down because non-white folks were restricted from coming into the country. That is why America, supposedly, in his perspective, was great. So I think we can walk away from a good amount of those topics. But before we do, let me do this. I just realized I left some more information out here. You know me, I don't like to leave information out. That's not what I do here. So recall where we talked about crowds of blacks prowling around, hunting white people to hurt them for fun, and supposedly being a fact. Now, I'm hoping that I don't get myself strung up by YouTube for this. Oh, shouldn't use that, should I? So I hope I don't get myself into any trouble here, but I tried to whitewash this just enough to share this information with you folks. All right, so again, I'll say it one more time. Or better yet, here, no, don't let me say this. No, I am not going to say this. I'm going to let Charlie say this for us. Because obviously, Della Delos, or whatever your name is, dude, you seem to think that we're up here existing in delusions and fantasy. So let's go ahead and just do this the right way. Wait just a second. Entire screen. All right, there we go. All right, so again, fair use, fair use.
Happening all the time in urban America. Prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact. Happening all the time in urban America. Prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact.
Come now, selector, one more again.
Happening all the time in urban America. Prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact.
And as Rob said earlier, and as I said also, no, it is not a fact. It is a goddamn lie. But you know what is a fact? I'll show you what. Oh, you damn right. I will show you what. So here's what's a fact. You had mobs of angry, racist whites who hunted black people, ran them down, literally in cars if they had cars available, shot them, beat them, hung them, raped them, dumped them in lakes, burned them out of the houses. That's what actually happened here. So what sorts of things are happening nowadays that you would consider of primary concern? Hold up just for a second. Oh, yeah. So I want you to take a look at this. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. So like I said, I should have wiped this out here, but we'll just make this fast. So basically what you're looking at here is a picture of a man named Robert Johnson who was beaten and hung and then burned. Take a look at this Southern pride, this heritage, not hate, with his teeth out, right? He was accused, I believe, of sexually assaulting a 4-year-old girl. Although this did not happen, as was proven, it did not happen. But just because of the statement being made, he was taken out, hogtied, hung, and burned. Oh, let's continue here. Let's continue. All right, so I made sure to whitewash this as well here because that's pretty much what's happening right now. But I told you guys at the beginning, I've got something that's going to piss a lot of folks off here at the end of this. Well, I'll take it back. People who recognize and they see the racism for what it is, it will make them mad. But again, as you can see, this guy is pointing out, hey, look at that. Yeah, we got 2 of them at the end of the ropes. Now, if you look over to the right of the screen, or should I say the left, you'll once again see this heritage, not hate. And notice They both have their teeth out, smiling like, hey, job well done. And of course, if you look over here, once more, I've had to whitewash the bodies that are over here hanging from the tree here. But notice, once more, we have the smile. All right, we see that he has his teeth out also, as if, hey, what a great day. Yeah, this is the supposed conversation of heritage, not hate. And this is exemplified by the rebel flag. I was in my hometown recently, and on my side of the tracks, this is where all the blacks are. There's a book called The Color of Law. And it talks about how blacks on one side of the town and whites on the other. It is not by some, what is it that the Christians like to call it, intelligent design or some nonsense like that? No, it was purposeful. Why blacks were on the one side of town and whites were on the other. But anytime you see a white person living on the same side as blacks, it's because some of them just literally can't afford any better. I'll do what I can to stay above. I'll live where I have to. But you know what? I'm still white. And that is an attitude that exists still. So brazen as this is that in the side of town that this white person is living on the front of his house, he's got the rebel flag and it's saying heritage, not hate. Now, obviously, that's a goddamn lie. It is a hateful heritage, but still, anyone who tries to tell you that is more or less trying to get you to normalize racial injustice and racial prejudice. Food for thought. So getting back to this, as I was saying, this is what it looks like when you have groups of people stalking you for fun, for entertainment, or just because they feel they're entitled to, and not just hurting you, but killing you. All right, so we'll end with that. Oh, you know what? Nope, not done yet. I take that back. Not just yet. There's more. Let me do this. How about this? Here we go. Once again, take note. America first, all right? Here's that Southern pride, people. Here's that heritage. Heritage, not hate. America first. That sounds familiar. Where have we seen this before, right? Where is this coming from? Who would do such a thing and have America first as hey, I know that guy. Looks about the same, huh? Oh, I haven't forgotten about you, Ionator and Rob, by the way. So everybody who's still out here, put a 1 in the chat if you did not know that Trump got America first from the Ku Klux Klan. Put a 2 in the chat if you knew that Trump got the America first slogan from the Ku Klux Klan. So one more time, a 1 in the chat if you did not know that America first came from the Ku Klux Klan and that's where Trump got it from. Put a 2 in the chat if you knew Trump stole or took the America First slogan from the Ku Klux Klan. I was getting ready to say, Rob, Ionator or AI Native, did you know that Trump took the America First slogan from the Ku Klux Klan America First slogan from banners? Did you know that? Anyone who is watching this in the replay game, if you could, go ahead, same thing. Put a 1 in the chat if you did not know Trump stole the America First slogan from the Ku Klux Klan. Put a 2 in the chat if you knew that Trump took the American First slogan from the Ku Klux Klan. Oof. Wicked work, people. Wicked work. Ooh, one more. I'm always, where are we? Oh, yeah, there we go. There we go. Check this out. I think this is for sale on Amazon. Yes, it is on Amazon. Yes, Donald Trump is selling this. I think the author's name, Danny Toma, right there. America First, Understanding the Trump Doctrine. Oh, Donald Trump isn't a racist. One more time for those who did not get it. America First, one God, one country, one flag. But above all else, that's a fact. America First. Mazel tov, huh? Hey, all right, Nader. So, just to put this back out to you, since you and Rob seem to be my only two folks here tonight, put a 1 in the chat if you, Nader, did not know that Donald Trump took the America First slogan from the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, right? It's right there in front. He literally stole the America First concept or slogan from the Ku Klux Klan. So again, put a 1 in the chat if you did not know Donald Trump stole the slogan America First from the Ku Klux Klan, and put a 2 in the chat if you knew that Donald Trump stole the America First slogan from the Ku Klux Klan. Or just don't bother answering. Oh, so have we gotten to everything? Oh, no, we have not. Oh, okay. I thought I discussed that before, Smith. My bad. But yeah, that's exactly where it came from. So I say right now, put a 1 in the chat if you feel that once again I have brought receipts to substantiate my statements. Put a 2 in the chat if you still want to believe that I am telling lies and I am speaking a woke fantasy. So again, put a 1 in the chat if you feel that I have once again successfully brought the receipts to substantiate my statements. Put a 2 in the chat if you think I'm up here just being woke and telling lies, although the facts are right here. Oh, shit, I swear. Charlie Kirk just makes some of this stuff just too easy. Too easy. But anyway, how about that Charlie Kirk replacement line, right? Just a moment. Let me key this one up. All right, so in this next clip, what we're going to see here is Charlie Kirk talking about the great replacement. So again, who am I to talk about this? Why not just let him do it? That's the best way. Let him use his words. All right, fair use, fair use.
Is, of course, the great replacement. They're trying to replace us demographically. They're trying to make the country less white. It is an anti-white.
The sound was a bit choppy, but he said it is an agenda. All right. You saw it for yourselves, or should I say, you saw and heard it for yourselves. Again, people want to say, oh, you're taking it out of context. It's just a clip. Again, this is just a clip of something that he said elsewhere numerous times, but there's no misconstrue here. He said that they are trying to replace us and make America more white. Oh, you know what? I completely forgot about that. Rob, thank you. Well, see for yourself, folks. Trump's father was arrested at a Klan rally in 1927. Kudos, man. Thanks for keeping that straight. No, at its peak. Now, you talking about, well, here, let me just play this one more time. A&A. Hold up. Fair use.
Is, of course, the great replacement. They're trying to replace us demographically. They're trying to make the country less white. It is an anti-white.
It is an anti-white agenda. So that's basically what he's saying. So this is great replacement theory right there for you. Again, another lie. But don't take my word for it. Here, let me show you. Now, as always, if you don't agree with what's being shown on Google, as I've shown you before, folks, all you have to do is go to another source with the same information. Just type in great replacement theory or something like that. Watch how it comes up and then look at what is returned and verify how many sources do you have that say this is a lie, this is debunked, here's where you can go, here's information that shows you. You will see other means of information to be presented. You will see other threads basically that you can pull on that will bring you to the same conclusion that I'm already standing on. Charlie Kirk is a lying ass liar. Now, as far as great replacement theory, I typed it in with a question mark. Here's what came back. The great replacement theory is a debunked far-right white nationalist conspiracy theory that claims white populations in Western countries are being deliberately replaced by non-white immigrants, often through a plot orchestrated by globalist or Jewish elites. This theory is widely considered racist and anti-Semitic. Now, just to take a back here, you said, what exactly does he mean by at its peak? At its peak, meaning that when things were supposedly at its greatest. Charlie Kirk, I think you're talking about the the video. I think, yeah, you're probably talking about the previous video about immigration, right? So when he was saying that at its peak, meaning that when you had completely restricted any non-white nationality from coming into America, America was supposedly thriving. No, that was not the case. That was also another blatant lie, because remember, you had the war that was going on at this time frame. You had also, after World War II, there was the Korean War. And then also, I want to say that Vietnam was starting, or at least getting ready to. I think we had the Bay of Pigs in 1962. Was it 63, Rob? The Bay of Pigs? I want to say it was 1963, but nonetheless, America was not this great place if you were not of white European descent. Now, if you were Charlie Kirk living in delusion and whatever type of oblivion that he was in, oh yeah, America was a great place. But he was lying, as I think you should have seen by now. And going back to what Rob was talking about when Trump's father was arrested in 1927 at the Klan rally, because he was already wealthy, he was released without any charges being filed. That was just a common thing back then. But getting back to it again, looking at this great replacement theory nonsense, demographic change is a plot. The theory frames natural demographic changes, such as failing or falling white birth rates and immigration, as part of an intentional, sinister plot to erode white culture, political power, and ethnic majority status. Voter replacement. A common variation in the U.S. suggests that Democrats encourage mass migration so that the non-white immigrants will become more obedient voters and create a permanent liberal political majority. Now, fuck it, let me just go ahead and say this. What you're dealing with here is that when you have policies that are unpopular And because those unpopular policies cause people to vote against you, you cry, oh, they're trying to replace us. They're busing folks in. They're bringing them in from different countries. Nobody's doing that. The only person bringing folks in from different countries is Donald Trump, when Elon Musk told him that there was genocide going on in South Africa and that whites were in danger. Let me know if I'm wrong. Who forgets here that Donald Trump, on Elon Musk's behest, flew white folks in from South Africa because there was supposed genocide going on. And as soon as they got there, just like everything else, the talk of genocide in South Africa went away. Did I miss a comment over here? No, I guess I didn't. All right. White genocide. It is closely linked to the older white genocide conspiracy theory, which directly uses the slogan, "We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children." Racial and cultural anxiety. The theory preys on anxieties about shifting cultural and racial landscapes, often using violent rhetoric to describe an invasion of immigrants. Now think about this word invasion. How often do we always hear this? Remember back in 2018 where you had the migrant caravan. Trump said, oh, it's an invasion. They're invading us from the south, from the southern border. We've got to get the wall up. I know walls, I'll tell you. I do walls. No one knows walls like me. All this type of nonsense. And also, there's Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is also a part of the migrant caravan. None of that was true. But every couple of years when there is an election, whether it be the midterms or it is the actual presidential election, there's always some crisis, and it's always centered around racism. So again, for anybody who's still there, put a 1 in the chat if you think that I have sufficiently debunked, once again, Charlie Kirk's latest lie that we're talking about here regarding the great replacement theory. Put a 1 in the chat if I showed that Charlie Kirk was, surprise, lying. Put a 2 in the chat if you think that I did not provide enough information. Now, of course, if you think I didn't provide enough information, then you're welcome to go ahead and search yourself. Just type great replacement theory inside of your favorite search engine and just pull the threads that come back. How is there a white genocide in South Africa while there are white high-ranking officials in government? Exactly. Exactly. And even the black South African president even said that. Now, of course, he didn't say, hi, this is my white guy over here. No, he said that one of my officials in my cabinet is white. He would have said something. Hell, he probably would have been gone had there been genocide. But when you call these lies out, anyone who is not willing to believe that because they want to be right, well, I don't see any prejudice here, you're lying. Well, again, right is a moral perspective that is based on beliefs. And what do I always say about belief? It's non-existent. Faith is the belief in non-existence. All right, there's nothing there. So I think we've played just about everything, folks. Let me go back and check one more time just to make sure there's nothing left here. Immigration, replacement. We talked about replacement. We talked about criminality. And when I say we're talking about the lies that Charlie Kirk told. Charlie Kirk told lies about prowling blacks. He talked about the great replacement. He talked about immigration. You know what? Before we do an outro, let's go ahead and do this. Let's just hear from Charlie Kirk one more time, all of his fabulous sayings, shall we? Fair use.
Be delivered. When blacks in America did not have the same rights they had today, they were less murderous, there was less break-ins, Why is that?
So I'm sorry, are you trying to say that blacks thrive under subjugation?
No, I'm not. I'm saying I'm asking you the question. The data shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad. It was evil. But what happened? Something changed.
All right. So who remembers what changed? Because we talked about it earlier in the show. Now, I know some of you didn't expect to take a pop quiz, but I'm just doing this just to round everything out here. Those lies are akin to the lies that were told to American citizens over the Iraq War by Bush and the assassination in Libya by the Obama administration. So, yeah, you're going to have a lot of information that people literally have no concept about. If they don't keep themselves dialed in, they do not have any knowledge, and anyone who comes out to be the loudest voice is who they're listening to. But again, what changed? So based on this video, the thing that changed is that after Jim Crow was abolished, there still needed to be a way to keep blacks in line, so to speak. And in order to keep blacks in line, they linked, and I say the government linked the civil rights movement directly to criminality in order to say that blacks were criminals, and to also make sure that the arrests were there, the race were there to justify saying that black folks were criminals. So that was the change. In the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, Jim Crow was still at large. And as you saw from the pictures that I presented earlier, if blacks got out of line, whites knew that they could hang them. Just make a statement that wasn't even true, but somebody's going to believe it. You're going to have either a mass murder of a town, or someone kicking down, or a whole bunch of someone's kicking down the door of someone's house, someone being a person of color, dragging them outside, shooting, hanging, burning the house, and probably a cross as well. So that's why blacks were, and in this ingenuous way that Charlie phrased it, were less murderous. Blacks were not murdering. Blacks were trying to stay alive. The black family was more together in unity under Jim Crow, not because Jim Crow was great. It was because of the fact that Jim Crow was a threat. Anyone could not come home at any point in time. Jim Crow was a threat. That's why you didn't see a lot of murders. You didn't see a lot of anything from blacks misbehaving, because it was too easy for blacks to die just by existing. Yep, the Greensboro Massacre of 1969. I wonder if that's one of the massacres here that I'm going to be doing here for some of the follow-up shows here, Rob. I'll take a look at that. All right, so let's take a look at our second Charlie Kirk tale here. Fair use, fair use.
Happening all the time in urban America. Prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact. Happening all the time in urban America. Prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact. Happening all the time in urban America. Prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact.
No, it is not a fact. That's the one that was nationally televised with none of the participants being convicted over the black people that were killed. Yeah, that was not the only one, Rob, where none of the participants were convicted. As I mentioned last week, I did the Slocum, Texas Black Massacre. No one caught. There were 11 people who were brought in, but out of the 11, I want to say that 7 may have been convicted, but eventually everyone was let go. So I think we've got a bit of a time delay here, maybe about 2 minutes, a minute or two. But as I was saying here, Charlie Kirk was telling a bald-faced lie. But I think you all know that I've proven that he was telling a lie. Blacks are not prowling around hunting whites for fun and hurting them. Instead, I showed numerous pictures of blacks being strung up, chased, and run off and put into a tree by hundreds of white folks because of the fact that they thought it was funny, they felt entitled, or how about this, just because they could. All right, here's the next one. Fair use, fair use.
America was at its peak when we halted immigration for 40 years and we dropped our foreign-born percentage to its lowest level ever. America was at its peak when we halted immigration for 40 years and we dropped our foreign-born percentage to its lowest level ever. America was at its peak when we halted immigration for 40 years and we dropped our foreign-born percentage to its lowest level ever.
And for anybody watching, remember, immigration was not halted for 40 years. It was not halted. As I said before previously, immigration was only halted or slowed down for non-white individuals coming to America. Anyone who was not white was restricted coming into the country for almost 40 years. So it wasn't halted, it wasn't stopped. It's just that you had a strainer put on, for the most part, that any non-white individuals wanting to come into America were not allowed. That's why you had a period of 40 years that Charlie Kirk was being disingenuous about. Again, American prosperity had zero to do with immigration policy at that time. Exactly. But hey, I'm lying, right? I'm just a big old black liar here, right? And for the last one, our replacement line. Fair use, fair use.
Is, of course, the great replacement. They're trying to replace us demographically. They're trying to make the country less white. It is an anti-white. Is, of course, the great replacement. They're trying to replace us demographically. They're trying to make the country less white. It is an anti-white.
A supposed anti-white agenda, which again we know is a lie. Now, when you see Charlie Kirk, sitting behind his desk, the microphone, that's him on his Charlie Kirk show telling this lie. So there's nothing I'm doing here other than playing the same lie that he told on his show just in a segment. He's got multiple other lies that we can get into, but I only wanted to get these particular few here just so I can put that with the title, which I think I have pretty much. Would you say, Rob, that I've done a good job of explaining this? White supremacy's willful distortion of the facts. Now, one cannot sit here and say that I have not proven this unless I just don't see any racism in what Charlie Kirk is doing. They can complain about perceived racial grievances without being called victims. And yes, thanks. Yeah. So yes, I have substantiated this. Thanks, Rob. And Rob is not saying yes because he's agreeing with me. No, he's saying yes because he's seen the same thing I have, that I've shared. And notice what has Delozo done. What the hell is that kid's name? Here we go. Dolo Desi. Notice that he ran in here, threw his bullshit frag grenade, and ran off. Didn't stick around long enough to give any substance about how I am being woke. Hey, look, give it up, bro. That woke shit dead. People want to hear the truth now, not this fantasy world stuff you woke liberals are talking. And there's nothing that he could say to substantiate what would give him any reason to say that I'm providing stuff from a fantasy world. Hell, Charlie Kirk said it, not me. How am I going to be the one who's in here in the fantasy world and it's him talking? I'm just showing where he's lying. You cannot make this up. Well, one more time around the room here. One more time. Am I missing? No, I think we hit the nail on the head here. So here's the last thing that I want folks to see here. So this was greatly distressing. Dare I say, effed all the way up when I show you this. This is what I am trying to tell people when I say that Donald Trump and his administration are trying to erase blacks from any type of educational, intellectual existence, patriotic existence as well. Conservatives are also practicing a most severe form of identity politics. So stop me, Rob. Did you know this was going on? The Trump administration today removed memorials over in Netherlands that had to do with the Black World War II veterans who served in World War II. They removed memorials for Black veterans. Fury as memorial to World War II Black soldiers removed after Heritage Foundation complaint. Wow. A memorial to African American soldiers killed in World War II has been removed from a cemetery in the Netherlands, sparking fury. 2 panels highlighting the role of Black soldiers were removed from the American War Cemetery in Margarethen, Limburg, the Dutch newspaper NRC reported. Many have slammed the move as racist. The cemetery is the only American military cemetery in the Netherlands, with 8,288 soldiers buried there. The panels about Black soldiers were added in 2024, so it was done during the Biden administration. One of the panels commemorated the million African Americans volunteered for service during World War II. The second panel was dedicated to engineer George H. Pruitt, who died in 1945 while trying to save a fellow soldier who had fallen into a river. Forgive me, y'all, all right, for this joke, but this, you heard the joke about Black people can't swim. I am the worst, all right? I'm the worst, forgive me, but that's the first thing that came to mind when I saw this about him trying to save someone who fallen in the river. Obviously, he couldn't swim. It's not funny. Don't laugh at that shit. The removal comes after right-wing think tank, the Heritage Foundation, whom we've discussed, accused the American Battle Monuments Commission of not supporting Donald Trump's crackdown on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. So for those who are watching this from the clouds, or maybe you're watching this in the with the replay game because you didn't want to sit up and have the conversation from the chat, because I told you I'm not letting you guys come up here and tell these type of lies and get breathing room on my platform. It's not happening. But as I said before, excuse me, Trump's and his allies calling DEI didn't earn it are more a reflection of the people who are in his administration. You have 20 folks who lost their run for government or for office, whatever you want to call it. And even though they lost, Donald Trump brought them into his cabinet. So who really didn't earn it? And as far as DEI goes, come on now. DEI, division, extortion, intimidation, or as I like to call it, Trump DEI. Just yesterday, I think Cornell had finally folded and they were going to pay Donald Trump, what, $60 million so they could get their federal funding back. Does that not sound like some wise guy shit or what? Donald Trump has turned the entire government into either, no matter how you look at it, either you call it a protection racket, or if you don't call it a protection racket, you can call it a cash cow. Because if you're not paying him money in order to get your funding, we're talking about Brown, we're talking Harvard, Cornell, and there's a few other universities who are paying money just so they can get access back to their federal funding, provided that you don't teach any DEI. You can't do DEI. If you do, you won't get your funding that they're already entitled to. Now, let's not forget the extortion that Donald Trump has put on law firms at $250 million a pop. He's extorted 10 law firms between January and up to now. Donald Trump has made $1 billion, or should I say the Trump administration has made $1 billion alone in just the 10 law firms that they've been extorting and getting in exchange for 200 million, 250 million, 150 million. This is money that is being paid by these law firms. And in exchange, Trump is getting free pro bono from these guys. He's getting representation for where these lawyers are now going in with ICE and going after people who work in diners, people who made a wrong turn delivering pizza. Oh, shit. You're right, Rob. Just recently, Trump tried to extort his own DOJ, where he said, I think I need $230 million for the suffering that I endured when they were trying to prosecute me for my actual crimes that I committed. Are you effing me? Or are you effing forgetting that he did all this stuff? No, the shutdown is going on right now, so all that is off people's minds. But anyhow, just to draw the line right here, here's the basis of it, folks. Donald Trump's administration has now removed any type of memorial for Black soldiers in the Netherlands in the cemetery because of the fact that it is not consistent with Donald Trump's DEI program. God damn. All right. So I guess we can go ahead and call it quits right here. I want to say thanks to Rob. Thanks for also Agent Smith breezing through. Ionata, if you're watching this in the replay, thank you for showing up for the first time. I hope you've seen enough information to get you to go back and take a look at anything that Charlie Kirk has said. I believe I have sufficiently laid to rest any of his lies that he's been telling or he told during his lifetime. Who else was able to? Haven, not Spidey-Man. Thank you also for having a minute to come through. I appreciate that. By all means, please come back if you have the opportunity. Oh, Frank, where is he? Frank Bracamonte. Obviously, Frank didn't stay around long enough here because either he wasn't going to see me engage in his disingenuous debate, or the fact that the truth was being put out here that you could follow for yourself was something that he could not contend with. He left. And that's generally what happens. I'm not going to argue with you guys. I'm not going to have an all-out flame war on my show with folks who are coming here with bad arguments or bad intention to be made from anyway. Absolutely not. I'm not going to sit here and get into it with some Dunning-Kruger superiority complex inflicted individual. Not going to happen. Nope. So as always, if you have any questions, folks, I dropped my email before. Shoot me some information. Matter of fact, let me do it one more time. As I said before, I am not one of these YouTube, social media, non-degree psychologists that you have out here who are having conversations about the current topic at hand. All right, I'm not going to sit here and burn any time talking about men being the leaders, women's body counts, and all this type of stuff that's just circular at this point in time. If you're having the same conversation a year down the road, 2 years down the road that you had 2 years prior, then you have to think about who are you having this conversation with if it's still the same thing. That's just me saying this, all right? But nonetheless, as I said before, my background is actual psychology, bachelor's, master's, currently going through the doctoral program. So I don't consider myself a therapist. I don't call myself that yet, but I do have the background enough to where I can have a counseling session and a conversation with you, if anything. Now, I'm not going to say that I have medical advice that I'm going to give folks, but I'm going to give you the opportunity, if you'd like, just to have a conversation, discuss things that are on your mind, and have a perspective to think outside your own head. Now, what I'll probably end up doing, what I'm not doing right now, is being more active in my posts, where I need to go ahead and get myself an account to where I can do some scheduling. And with that scheduling, I'll make it available on my page here on YouTube. All right. So I'll do that. And if anyone is interested in having a conversation, by all means, let's do so. In the interim, you've got my email address. If you have any questions, commentaries about the show, about the information that I'm presenting, or if you have anything on your mind that you'd like to bounce off me, let me know. At this point in time, I'm not charging anything. Nope, not at the moment. So now's the best time to get in, right? So closing us out, we had a discussion about white supremacy's willful distortion of facts, primarily told to everyone by Charlie Kirk. I didn't make it up. Charlie gave us his perspective. We let him do the talking. So as we started the show about Charlie, let's go ahead and end it with these two things that I said before. Charlie Kirk was a racist, sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot, also a lying Azz Liar. Now, I know folks may not like that, but I don't think I said anything that was wrong in this statement I just made. Appreciate it, Rob. Second, Charlie Kirk routinely trafficked in Southern strategy-styled hate speech dressed up as legitimate political discord, which is nothing more than conservative political theater and disingenuous debate. So, if you are still here or in the get along game, or should I say, pretty much our replay game, put a 1 in the chat if I have told the truth about everything that I was going to present on Charlie Kirk. Put a 1 in the chat if I told the truth and provided information that tells a true story. Appreciate it, Rob. And again, Rob is not giving me a 1 just because he shows up and we're good like that. No, he's giving a 1 because the information that I provided could be validated. If we had more folks here, I'm sure we might have more 1s, or heck, we probably have 2s, just because of the fact that, well, I didn't see any racism. And as I said before, if you do not call out Charlie Kirk's racism, it's because you do not want your own racism on Front Street as well. All right, folks, I appreciate you for stopping by. And always on the way out, if you like it, let me know. Share it if you do. And subscribe if this is what you're looking for. All right. John Henry out. Thanks for watching.